And this chant also has a beautiful meaning to it when he talks about in my house with thine own hands light the lamp of thy love. Now that we are coming towards Diwali, getting ready, the festival of light, and this body is the house that we are all occupying. Like the last chapter we saw Pranabananda, where he said this, he was a tenant in this house, in this place, right? So let us all visualize ourselves as tenants who are occupying this house and inviting God and Guru's presence there. My house with thine own hands like the lamp of thine love. In my house with thine own hands like the lamp of thine love. Thy transmuting lamp entrancing, thy transmuting lamp entrancing, wondrous are its rays. Change my darkness to thy light, Lord. Change my darkness to thy light, and my evil into good. Touch me but once and I will change. Touch me but once and I will change. All my clay into thy good. All the tents of thy guided light, suited into worries, sitting at the door of my soul, sitting at the door of my soul, light thy resurrecting light. In my house with thine own hands light lamp of thine love. In my house with thine own hands light the lamp of thine love. Thy transmuting lamp entrancing, thy transmuting lamp entrancing, wondrous are its rays. Change my darkness to thy light, Lord. Change my darkness to thy light, and my evil into good. Touch me but once and I will change, and I will change all my clay into thy good. All the sense lamps that I did light, suited into worries, sitting at the door of my soul, sitting at the door of my soul, light thy resurrecting light. In my house with thine own hands light the lamp of thine. In my house with thine own hands light the lamp of thine. With this chant, let us keep these words in our hearts, opening our hearts, inviting God and Gurus to come and light the lamp of wisdom, of love, of eternal bliss, and remove all darkness, remove all smallness in us, everything that blinds us to God and Gurus, inviting them to light us up, to be beacons of light in this world, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Actually, this chant is so significant. No? It shows that we can meditate, we can do whatever we do to be in tune, but that is all we can do. Uh, the light comes because of God's grace. We can open ourselves, keep the doors of our hearts open so that the light enters. We can uh, perceive that light. That is all that we need to do. But it comes because of the grace of God and Gurus. So it's inviting them in is very important. And this chant, especially, is all the more important because this is a chant Master chanted a day before he left his body. For a long time, he chanted this one. So it's a very special chant, and we know why, because he invited that God's, even a self-realized master, is singing this chant again and again and again, inviting God to keep him close as he embarks on that journey. So now we go into the chapter Kashi, Reborn and Rediscovered. Again, like other chapters, I thought this is a small chapter, pretty easy. We probably only have to read, and there might not be much to discuss, but then the pages are filled. So let us first listen to the reading.
Chapter 28, Kashi, Reborn and Rediscovered. Please do not go into the water. Let us bathe by dipping our buckets. I was addressing the young Ranchi students who were accompanying me on an 8-mile hike to a neighboring hill. The pond before us was inviting, but a distaste for it had arisen in my mind. The group around me followed my example by dipping buckets, but a few lads yielded to the temptation of the cool waters. No sooner had they dived than large water snakes wriggled around them. The boys came out of the pond with comical alacrity. We enjoyed a picnic lunch after we reached our destination. I sat under a tree, surrounded by a group of students. Finding me in an inspirational mood, they plied me with questions. "Please tell me, sir," one youth inquired, "if I shall always stay with you in the path of renunciation." "Ah, no," I replied. "You will be forcibly taken away to your home, and later you will marry." Incredulous, he made a vehement protest. "Only if I am dead can I be carried home." But in a few months his parents arrived to take him away, and in spite of his tearful resistance, some years later he did marry. After answering many questions, I was addressed by a lad named Kashi. He was about 12 years old, a brilliant student, and beloved by all. "Sir," he said, "what will be my fate?" "You shall soon be dead." The reply came from my lips with an irresistible force. This unexpected disclosure shocked and grieved me as well as everyone present. Silently rebuking myself as an enfant terrible, I refused to answer further questions. On our return to the school, Kashi came to my room. "If I die, will you find me when I am reborn and bring me again to the spiritual path?" he sobbed. I felt constrained to refuse this difficult occult responsibility, but for weeks afterward, Kashi pressed me doggedly. Seeing him unnerved to the breaking point, I finally consoled him. "Yes," I promised, "if the Heavenly Father lends his aid, I will try to find you." During the summer vacation, I started on a short trip. Regretting that I could not take Kashi with me, I called him to my room before leaving and carefully instructed him to remain, against all persuasion, in the spiritual vibrations of the school. Somehow I felt that if he did not go home, he might avoid the impending calamity. No sooner had I left than Kashi's father arrived in Ranchi. For 15 days he tried to break the will of his son, explaining that if Kashi would go to Calcutta for only 4 days to see his mother, he could then return. Kashi persistently refused. The father finally said he would take the boy away with the help of the police. The threat disturbed Kashi, who was unwilling to be the cause of any unfavorable publicity to the school. He saw no choice but to go. I returned to Ranchi a few days later. When I heard how Kashi had been removed, I entrained at once for Calcutta. There I engaged a horse cab. Very strangely, as the vehicle passed beyond the Howrah Bridge over the Ganges, I beheld Kashi's father and other relatives in mourning clothes. Shouting to my driver to stop, I rushed out and glared at the unfortunate father. "Mr. Murderer," I cried somewhat unreasonably, "you have killed my boy." The father had already realized the wrong he had done in forcibly bringing Kashi to Calcutta. During the few days the boy had been there, he had eaten contaminated food, contracted cholera, and passed on. My love for Kashi and the pledge to find him after death, night and day haunted me. No matter where I went, his face loomed up before me. I began a memorable search for him, even as long ago I had searched for my lost mother. I felt that inasmuch as God had given me the faculty of reason, I must utilize it and tax my powers to the utmost in order to discover the subtle laws by which I could know the boy's astral whereabouts. He was a soul vibrating with unfulfilled desires, I realized. A mass of light floating somewhere amidst millions of luminous souls in the astral regions. How was I to tune in with him among so many vibrating lights of other souls? Using a secret yoga technique, I broadcast my love to Kashi's soul through the microphone of the spiritual eye, the inner point between the eyebrows. With the antenna of upraised hands and fingers, I often turned myself round and round, trying to locate the direction in which he had been reborn as an embryo. I hoped to receive response from him in the concentration-tuned radio of my heart. Intuitively I felt that Kashi would soon return to the earth, and that if I kept unceasingly broadcasting my call to him, his soul would reply. I knew that the slightest impulse sent by Kashi would be felt in my fingers, hands, arms, spine, and nerves. With undiminished zeal, I practiced the yoga method steadily for about 6 months after Kashi's death. Walking with a few friends one morning in the crowded Beaubazar section of Calcutta, I lifted my hands in the usual manner. For the first time, there was response. I thrilled to detect electrical impulses trickling down my fingers and palms. These currents translated themselves into one overpowering thought from a deep recess of my consciousness. "I am Kashi, I am Kashi, come to me." The thought became almost audible as I concentrated on my heart radio. In the characteristic, slightly hoarse whisper of Kashi is a footnote here. Every soul in its pure state is omniscient. Kashi's soul remembered all the characteristics of Kashi, the boy, and therefore mimicked his hoarse voice in order to stir my recognition. So, in the characteristic, slightly hoarse whisper of Kashi, I heard his summons again and again. I seized the arm of one of my companions, Prakash Das, and smiled at him joyfully. "It looks as though I've located Kashi." I began to turn round and round to the undisguised amusement of my friends and the passing throng. The electrical impulses tingled through my fingers only when I faced toward a nearby path, aptly named Serpentine Lane. The astral currents disappeared when I turned in other directions. Ah, I exclaimed, Kashi's soul must be living in the womb of some mother whose home is in this lane. My companions and I approached closer to Serpentine Lane. The vibrations in my upraised hands grew stronger, more pronounced. As if by a magnet, I was pulled toward the right side of the road. Reaching the entrance of a certain house, I was astounded to find myself transfixed. I knocked at the door in a state of intense excitement, holding my very breath. I felt that the successful end had come for my long, arduous, and certainly unusual quest. The door was opened by a servant, who told me her master was at home. He descended the stairway from the second floor and smiled at me inquiringly. I hardly knew how to frame my question, at once pertinent and impertinent. Please tell me, sir, if you and your wife have been expecting a child for about 6 months? Yes, it is so. Seeing that I was a Swami, a renunciate attired in the traditional orange cloth, he added politely, Pray inform me how you know my affairs. When he heard about Kashi and the promise I had given, the astonished man believed my story. A male child of fair complexion will be born to you, I told him. He will have a broad face with a cowlick atop his forehead. His disposition will be notably spiritual. I felt certain that the coming child would bear these resemblances to Kashi. Later I visited the child, whose parents had given him his old name of Kashi. Even in infancy he was strikingly similar in appearance to my dear Ranchi student. The child showed me an instantaneous affection. The attraction of the past awoke with redoubled intensity. Years later, the teenage boy wrote to me during my stay in America. He explained his deep longing to follow the path of a renunciate. I directed him to a Himalayan master who, to this day, guides the Reborn.
What a thrilling story. What a thrilling story. And Swamiji, when he's reading, his voice almost filled up. It's beautiful. Okay, so very small chapter and but very intense again. We'll come to the first para where he's talking about where he tells the kids that let us not go into the river today, but then some still venture because he says, but a few lads yielded to the temptation of the cool waters. Now, I mean, it's almost like, Master always used, Maya always tempts, right? Uh, Using various things. So, one, the Guru is saying, don't go there. It can be, he doesn't explain. He doesn't have to explain to us all the time. But then some of us say, why not? Why shouldn't we? We are all adults, but all grown up children only. No, as kids, we used to do, mother bolti thi, nahi jana, we would, why shouldn't I go? So we will try it out. So, and even now we are still doing that, right? So, Master always said that behind every rose bush of temptation or pleasure lies hides a rattlesnake of pain. So this is what it is, because he said don't go, but they were tempted to get in, and there they found all those snakes out there. Then where everybody is asking him, no, will I be? Most children, I think this is why environment is so important. No, if Master said environment is stronger than willpower. So when the children were in the previous chapter also, when Pradamananda had come, the children were always asking, will I also be a monk? Will I be a renunciate? because having seen master that way, and other teachers who were serving there, they must be monks, they all were so attracted to that life, to just renounce everything. So time and again the kids are asking that question, and of course then karma takes over, and other things come into play, and then they forget that they had this strong desire to find God. So okay, so now we come to the next page, where Kashi is saying, if I die, will you find me when I'm reborn and bring me again to the spiritual path? I mean, how many people would really be, when he's being told that you're going to die, the thought that came to him is not, what will happen to my parents and what will happen to my future. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, this desire. His thing was, will you bring me back to this spiritual path again? And Master says, again and again and again, he's asking the same question. And he said, and Master is not answering. He says, it's a when a master gives a commitment or a promise, it's binding on him. So they don't give it so easily unless they receive a sanction from divine sanction. It's not like their whims and fancies. Okay, main tumko dhoondunga. He can't say that. So he didn't, till he got that sanction from God, he didn't say yes to him. But this boy went after it. I think this is a very important thing for each one of us. This should be a constant prayer to each one of us, that if in case this lifetime we don't find God, uh, the only prayer should be that, keep me on this path, keep me on this in this lifetime itself. Why even forget about even the next lifetime? A lot of people come on the path, they take kriya, they seem to be going fine. Suddenly, some karma comes and they get knocked off. They are off the path. Good people, nice people, but somehow something just takes over and takes. So this should be a constant prayer for each one of us. Now that we have found the path, there is this story in New Path where Master he says that Swamiji. There was one more. I think he was heading Spanish ministry or something. Synod Coron, if I'm getting the name right. And Master told him that I lost sight of you for a couple of incarnations, but now that I have found you, I will make sure that I keep you in my this thing. And Swamiji said that time and again, Senor Quran would keep reminding me, Master, don't forget. And Master said, no, I will not forget. Swamiji later on in one talk, he said that does Master really lose sight? No, it's we who lose sight. If it's we who say, oh, I want to enjoy my life, stay away. I mean, this lifetime, next lifetime, though in lifetime, I want to just enjoy my life. So you want to forget that there was a guru, and we just stray off the path. And so the guru just waits. He can't do anything about it. So, and that's finally at some point, Senor Quran's soul must have decided, no, this is not working out. I want to come back. And that's when he came back and Master found him. So why waste lifetimes, no? So this is a very important prayer when Kashi is constantly saying, will you find me and bring me back to the path again and again. Finally, Master agrees, but again with the thing that, he brings God in. He says, if the Heavenly Father lends his aid, I will try to find you. He is a master, yet he didn't say, yes, I will find you. Don't worry, I give you my promise. I will. He says, if Heavenly Father aids me, I will definitely try to find. He never, unnecessarily give his word like that. Okay, so the next, another important point, he says, when he was going out, he says, I thought I couldn't take him away. So I thought if I keep him in this environment, then, so this is why it's very important that all of us have a karma. So Master is in through this particular paragraph where he says this karma is to die. Within few days, he is going to die. There is always an option. There is always another thing that can happen if we follow what the Guru is telling us. So, and so he wanted him to be in the vibration, in the spiritual vibration, in the satsang. That was satsang. The school was the satsang for that boy. It had the vibration of the master, even though he has gone away. But that place has a vibration that can help him overcome that karma, bypass that karma somehow, right? But the whole point is, do we let the karma take over? And karma is giving a tough fight. It's coming in a very, as his father, and who is giving all those emotional blackmail, or you have to meet the mother. How can you not meet the mother? But still, the boy held on. 15 days resisting the father is a long time that boy held on. But somewhere the karma was stronger. Probably if master was in that place, karma couldn't have taken over. But in this time place, that karma had to play its part. So probably that is why he was taken away. So this is the point that I think we all need to meditate on. So master always said that this is the moment. So we have put out a karma and we have to pay this thing. But this moment you can change it. You don't have to say, oh, it is my destiny. So how can we? This is how he's given the option. Be in that vibration of the guru, and you can escape it. So he had given that option, but unfortunately, the father, in the karma in the form of the father, just took over completely, where he even threatened, I'll bring the police. And the boy obviously didn't want the place getting a bad name. So he had to go. And master says, as soon as I found out, I entrained immediately. It's not just about Kashi. For each one of us, that is his concern. He is very concerned for each one of us. He will rush to us, to each one of us. Just pause and think about this. We are not just reading about Kashi. We are reading about each one of us and our relationship with Guru, right? He says, I entrained. And there, when he found the father, he says, you have killed my boy. For Guru is the spiritual father, and he has been with us. He has been, if he has been assigned the soul, we are his own, right? The biological father is for this lifetime, but our Guru is eternal. He's our eternal father. And for him, we are his boy, his girl, right? That is the kind of love he has for us. And he says, my love for Kashi and the pledge to find him after death, night and day haunted me. Our master gives us a promise when we take discipleship. We promise that I will follow you. And he has taken a huge responsibility for this soul. Each one of us who has committed to the path, he has taken, and he takes his promise very seriously, right? Do we take it as seriously? What the commitment we have? I mean, these are things to be pondered over, right? I mean, to think over. Am I also as serious in my following, or am I, shaky? Abhi hai, abhi nahi hai. Yeah, he's there around, but then I also enjoy doing other things. Nothing wrong. We need, as long as it's all directional. Each one. Some people are sprinting, some people are walking, some people are crawling, but as long as we are in that direction, it's fine. Each soul has its own time to reach there. But what we need to understand is relationship that a guru has with the disciple. So and he says, I began a memorable search for him, even as long ago I had searched for my lost mother. That kind of seriousness, that kind of commitment that he did for his own mother, that is the kind of commitment he is giving his disciple, because he had given him that promise, right? Hard-earned promise. And then he says, the subtle laws by which I could know the boy's astral whereabouts. So how was I to tune in with him among so many, whatever, using a secret technique? He says, I broadcasted my love to Kashi's soul through the microphone of the spiritual eye. This is the broadcasting station. We have been taught, right? So when you want to say a prayer, ask for something, this is the broadcasting station, and this is heart, the heart chakra. When we say heart, it's not the physical heart. Heart chakra is the receiving station. And he says the hands, very powerful magnets. That is why when we pray, we always rub our hands, and we send it through us. The hands are very powerful magnets, and they are antennas also, as there he's saying. With the antenna of upraised hands and fingers, he said, I often turn myself round and round trying to locate it. And then he goes on to say 6 months he struggled every single day. This is what he used to do. Just imagine the scene. Every day he would step out with his hands upraised, trying to send a signal to Kashi and trying to receive him here. Using hands, he would turn that different directions to see if he is able to pick up the vibration of Kashi's soul. Every single day he has been doing it. Not just one day he went in and he found out. 6 months he struggled with it. Okay. And so then he says, I lifted my hands in the usual manner for the first time. So with undiminished zeal, I practiced the yoga method steadily for 6 months after Kashi's death. I thrilled to detect electrical impulses trickling down my hands, these currents. So each one of us can receive, right? If we want to connect with our lost loved ones, or we want to send any information or some this thing to any loved one or anything, the point is each one has the potential to be able to receive these signals, these subtle currents. Why don't we receive? Because here we are thinking of this person, and parallelly we are also thinking of tomorrow I have to go there, the bank ka paisa khatam nahi hua, wo jaake I have to withdraw money, I have to, oh, I hope I have parked the car, oh, I have to call that person, oh, ye TV mein aaj ye, oh, the political scene. So there are too many thoughts vying. He is saying the thought became almost audible. I mean, he could almost hear Kashi's, I am Kashi, come to me. As I concentrated on my heart radio. Concentration is the key. So we need to work more on concentration, which can happen when we practice more of Hong So. As we receive Kriya, kind of Hong So is just 2 minutes. Master ne bola Hong So karna hai 2 minutes, and then we move on to Kriya. Very important. He has given a concentration technique. So as I said, each one of us can be the receiving. We can communicate with a lot of these subtle energies and our loved ones, lost loved ones, if only we can concentrate the way he did. And then it's not a one day thing. Oh, meditation, I didn't receive any. I asked a question to my guru didn't answer. It takes time. It takes a lot of time to practice this also. So even for him, it didn't come so easily, right? Even for a master, it took a lot of energy, lot of concentration, lot of willpower to finally trace him. The whole point is to continue with it, to stay with it. And it means that for us who are now right now pursuing on our spiritual journey, to stay with it, to practice everything that the master has taught. Okay, so I heard the summons and he goes there. So it looks as though I have located Kashi. Just visualize this. He's here, he is, suddenly he goes around and he feels the tingling in his hands. He has this, he almost hears this, and he says this, the Kashi's, that soul, he even heard that, the slightly hoarse whisper of Kashi. The soul even imitated that voice so that he can recognize, there was no mistaking, it was Kashi. Even when the deer story he was telling, even in that, the it's a deer, but it came and communicated, where it came and told him, let me go. The soul can communicate using any language, or even, if we have been human beings, then the voice that the other person knows, has heard in that lifetime. It just, and as master said that, when we leave later on, when he tells this boy is going to look like this, the child who's going to be born. So master says that there's not much difference. It's like, we slept, when we sleep in the night and get up, it's not like we have changed a lot, right? It's the same. Jayanti will get up. Similarly, when we die and we wake up in a new body, it's not, we carry the same thing, the same the astral chakra with the same thing, and we form the same body. Yes, with the additions of that family's genetics and DNA, everything will also be added to it. So little bit changes to, make us look like our mother or our father or that family line, but more or less we look almost similar to what, and we might have, hair color, which is, right now we are Indian, so we have Indian hair color, Indian facial, body color and all, but more or less we are same from what the previous body we were carrying. Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. So so it imitates the voice, and he is able to, locate the boy, I mean, the boy where he would have been born, uh, or he was, he was in the mother's womb. This is a question. In case we leave this body without uh, finding God, do we want our master to find us lifetime after lifetime? So this, it should be our, I mean, I think this should be our takeaway, that we tell him that, just keep me with you, just all the time, all the time, don't let me go away or me forget who you are, that at some point I just keep you away, from my existence. uh, and another thing is, when he goes there, reaching the entrance of a certain house, I was astounded to find myself transfixed. I knocked on the door in a state of intense excitement, holding my very breath. I felt that a successful end had come for my long, arduous, and certainly unusual quest. Again, pause, bring yourself into the picture. When we came back on the path, isn't this how our master would have been excited? Oh, this soul has come back. This child of mine has come back. I mean, for whatever years later we have come back, right? In this lifetime, we came when we were 40, or we came when we were, some people came early when they were 20. This is same. As Master said that, to somebody, that God loves everyone equally. I mean, when we say God, Guru is same, right? It's God and Guru, it's the same thing. You can interchange it and say. So it is not like he loves somebody more and somebody less. So when he's saying he was so excited that he had traced Kashi, wouldn't he have been same excited when he came on the path? When he found us, we are back here. When the first day we walked into our centers and, learned our Hong Saw and energization exercises, wouldn't he have been as excited saying, my child is back? Thrilling, no? Thrilling, just listening to this, thinking about it, so that itself is so thrilling. So as I mentioned, he says that male child, and he says that he will look exactly like Kashi, and he did. Kashi, when he was born, he looked, and Master kept at it. He would come and meet the child, even after going off to the US. He was in touch with the boy when the boy finally wrote to him. Again, seems like in the this boy was not really. Otherwise, Master would have continued to guide him. So this boy was meant to for some other guru. So this is again a very important point, that these gurus, it's not like, it's there some, they have some major targets that I need to have these many disciples. So if he came on this path to with Yogananda, Yogananda took it very seriously, and then guided him in a way where he went off to his actual guru. And he says, I directed him to a Himalayan master who to this day guides the reborn Kashi. So that's again a constant prayer for, I mean, we are all here, most of us are Kriyaban, so we are here, we know this is our path. But for people who come, new level 1, they have done level 2, and when they are about to take level 3, there's always a question, I'm not sure if this is my path. And that is what we always tell them, right? That meditate on it and ask the guru, are you my guru? Or if you are not my guru, guide me to my path. And invariably it so happens, on the day of discipleship, they, something turns up and they are not able to take discipleship or something. So this is a very beautiful chapter, I think, worth going back to and reading again and again to understand what is the commitment level the guru has, what kind of, what love is that, that he follows us lifetime after lifetime. I mean, beautiful it is. And the way he goes about it is so beautiful. So anybody has anything else to add? Yes, Amit.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how, so this is such a powerful chapter. I was just reflecting on this. Swamiji, I think I read somewhere Swamiji saying that astral world is much nearer than we think, because we are so acutely aware of the physical world because we can see it, and because of the Maya, that we can kind of ignore the astral world, which is out there very much. So all this is which we right now think as they are probably miracles that he was able to, but this is all very much possible. There are so many things which he has kind of disclosed. It's like, knowing this spiritual universe, this astral universe out there, and what it can do. It can protect us by, like he was telling, that if you stay in this vibration, probably the impending calamity would go away. And
Yes,
so many, I
yes.
mean, it's just exhilarating to know that so much can be helped and achieved if we know about this astral world, and how, the how it helps the physical, where our physical existence can be better helped, our difficulties, our existence, our, and of course, like, you rightly pointed out about this, that guru is helping us across many lifetimes, and all this connection through, the we are taking the blueprint of our astral bodies from the previous birth. The blueprint, same blueprint comes here, and so it is so important that we change our, we improve as much as possible. If we, even if we are not freed, at least, like Swamiji said, it's directionally we are progressing on the spiritual path. So our blueprint is better. Our, the attitudes, our difficult, our, bad habits and all, as much as we can win over them, we should. So
Absolutely.
these two things I really
Yeah.
felt that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then also that we don't have to keep troubling him lifetime after, please come and serve, please come and serve. Kabhi to free ho jao. He must also be saying, at least you get free, let me take care of others. So I think it's a responsibility for each one of us, as you said, to change the blueprint and just not continue where we were going happily, just and then keep coming back lifetime after lifetime, expecting the master to keep searching us out and finding us out. We don't know where we are going to be born the next time, with the circumstances be as this thing. So it is imperative on each one of us to, now that we have found the path, just keep moving directionally in the way he wants us to progress. So very important. Yes, you're right. This is a very, I mean, that's what I was saying, such a small chapter, and I thought we will just have to read it, that's it. My god. And when we was listening to that part where master finally traces the soul, Swamiji was choked. I mean, you could make out, and it's a very moving chapter, actually. Beautiful it is. Yes. So now we move on to Rabindranath Tagore. Do we have time? Yeah, we have. It's again a very short chapter, and it's more a read through, except for a couple of things where Master, as I said, he was very inspired with his chants and his songs. And Rabindranath Tagore again was, more super consciously guided. So he was not just any poet, just any this thing. He was very super consciously guided, and that is why the part where he comes and where other poets are saying, oh, he's just selling, cooing his this thing to the for money or whatever. He just ignored them because he knew what he was doing was absolutely received, and his passion for the same thing. The children being trained from the start, and also the songs which master used to sing a lot. So these three are the main important points as we read this chapter. Anything else, please, one you can also add later on once this reading is done.
29. Rabindranath Tagore and I compare schools. Rabindranath Tagore taught us to sing as a natural form of self-expression, like the birds. Bholanath, a bright 14-year-old lad at my Ranchi school, gave me this explanation after I had complimented him one morning on his melodious outbursts. With or without provocation, the boy poured forth a tuneful stream. He had previously attended the famous Tagore school of Shantiniketan, Haven of Peace at Bolpur. The songs of Rabindranath have been on my lips since early youth, I told my companion. All Bengal, even the unlettered peasants, delights in his lofty verse. Bola and I sang together a few refrains from Tagore, who has set to music thousands of Indian poems, some original and others of hoary antiquity. I met Rabindranath soon after he had received the Nobel Prize for Literature. I remarked after our vocalizing. I was drawn to visit him because I admired his undiplomatic courage in disposing of his literary critics. I chuckled. Bhola curiously inquired the story. The scholars severely flayed Tagore for introducing a new style into Bengali poetry, I began. He mixed colloquial and classical expressions, ignoring all the prescribed limitations dear to the pundits' hearts. His songs embody deep philosophic truth in emotionally appealing terms, with little regard for the accepted literary forms. One influential critic slightingly referred to Rabindranath as a, quote, pigeon poet who sold his cooings in print for a rupee, end quote. But Tagore's revenge was at hand. The whole Western world paid homage at his feet soon after he had translated into English his Gitanjali, Song of Offerings. A trainload of pundits, including his one-time critics, went to Shantiniketan to offer their congratulations. Rabindranath received his guests only after an intentionally long delay, and then heard their praise in stoic silence. Finally, he turned against them their own habitual weapons of criticism. "Gentlemen," he said, "the fragrant honors you here bestow are incongruously mingled with the putrid odors of your past contempt. Is there possibly any connection between my award of the Nobel Prize and your suddenly acute powers of appreciation? I am still the same poet who displeased you when I first offered my humble flowers at the shrine of Bengal." The newspapers published an account of the bold chastisement given by Tagore. I admired the outspoken words of a man unhypnotized by flattery, I went on. I was introduced to Rabindranath Tagore in Calcutta by his secretary, Mr. C. F. Andrews, who was simply attired in a Bengali dhoti. He referred lovingly to Tagore as his Gurudeva. Rabindranath received me graciously. He emanated a soothing aura of charm, culture, and courtliness. Replying to my question about his literary background, Tagore told me that one ancient source of his inspiration, besides our religious epics, had been the classic poet Vidyapati. Inspired by these memories, I began to sing Tagore's version of an old Bengali song, "Light the Lamp of Thy Love." Bhola and I chanted joyously as we strolled over the Vidyalaya grounds. About 2 years after founding the Ranchi school, I received an invitation from Rabindranath to visit him at Shantiniketan in order to discuss our educational ideals. I went gladly. The poet was seated in his study when I entered. I thought then, as at our first meeting, that he was as striking a model of superb manhood as any painter could desire. His beautifully chiseled face, nobly patrician, was framed in long hair and flowing beard, large melting eyes, an angelic smile, and a voice of flute-like quality which was literally enchanting. Stalwart, tall, and grave, he combined an almost womanly tenderness with the delightful spontaneity of a child. No idealized conception of a poet could find more suitable embodiment than in this gentle singer. Tagore and I were soon deep in a comparative study of our schools, both founded along unorthodox lines. We discovered many identical features: outdoor instruction, simplicity, ample scope for the child's creative spirit. Rabindranath, however, laid considerable stress on the study of literature and poetry, and the self-expression through music and song, which I had already noted in the case of Bhola. The Shantiniketan children observed periods of silence, but were given no special yoga training. The poet listened with flattering attention to my description of the energizing yogoda exercises and the yoga concentration techniques which are taught to all students at Ranchi. Tagore told me of his own early educational struggles. "I fled from school after the 5th grade," he said, laughing. I could readily understand how his innate poetic delicacy had been affronted by the dreary, disciplinary atmosphere of a schoolroom. "That is why I opened Shantiniketan under the shady trees and the glories of the sky." He motioned eloquently to a little group standing in the beautiful garden. "A child is in his natural setting amidst the flowers and songbirds. Only thus may he fully express the hidden wealth of his individual endowment. True education can never be crammed and pumped from without. Rather, it must aid in bringing spontaneously to the surface the infinite hoards of wisdom within." I agreed. The idealistic and hero-worshipping instincts of the young are starved on an exclusive diet of statistics and chronological eras. The poet spoke lovingly of his father, Devendranath, who had inspired the Shantiniketan beginnings. Father presented me with this fertile land where he had already built a guest house and temple, Rabindranath told me. I started my educational experiment here in 1901 with only 10 boys. The £8,000 which came with the Nobel Prize all went for the upkeep of the school. The elder Tagore, Devendranath, known far and wide as Maharishi, was a very remarkable man, as one may discover from his autobiography. 2 years of his manhood were spent in meditation in the Himalayas. In turn, his father, Dwarkanath Tagore, had been celebrated throughout Bengal for his munificent public benefactions. From this illustrious tree has sprung a family of geniuses. Not Rabindranath alone, all his relatives have distinguished themselves in creative expression. His brothers, Gogonendra and Abanindra, are among the foremost artists of India. Another brother, Dvijendra, is a deep-seeing philosopher, at whose gentle call the birds and woodland creatures respond. Rabindranath invited me to stay overnight in the guest house. It was indeed a charming spectacle, in the evening, to see the poet seated with a group in the patio. Time unfolded backward. The scene before me was like that of an ancient hermitage, the joyous singer encircled by his devotees, all aureoled in divine love. Tagore knitted each tie with the cords of harmony. Never assertive, he drew and captured the heart by an irresistible magnetism. Rare blossoms of poesy blooming in the garden of the Lord, attracting others by a natural fragrance. In his melodious voice, Rabindranath read to us a few of his exquisite poems, newly created. Most of his songs and plays written for the delectation of his students, have been composed at Shantiniketan. The beauty of his lines, to me, lies in his art of referring to God in nearly every stanza, yet seldom mentioning the sacred name. Drunk with the bliss of singing, he wrote, I forget myself and call thee friend, who art my Lord. The following day after lunch, I bade the poet a reluctant farewell. I rejoice that his little school has now grown to an international university, Vishwabharati, where scholars of all lands have found an ideal setting, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Rabindranath Tagore.
A beautiful poem, no? And interesting that when Master left his body, his, the poem he had written on India is the poem he left the body with. Beautiful. I mean, the love they had for their country, and you know, and as you can see that Rabindranath Tagore was also a very inspired. That's why in Bengal he's still called Gurudev only, right? And people still saying Rabindra Sangeet is such a powerful thing that most Bengalis know. They sing even to this day. And anything else, anybody? And where it talks about the education, Master and Rabindranath Tagore, even Swamiji took that very seriously and went on to establish this education for life schools, which are or based on these facts only, that you know it was developed on that children need. It's not like, you know, that the regular cramming and the Western education is all that the kids need, but to develop it in all spheres according to the age they are in. I am so, you know, this is really beautiful. Anybody else wants to add anything to it? So you're all good. So, okay, thank you. Thanks for joining. Next chapter is beautiful, the law of miracles. I mean, very powerful chapter again. So see you all soon.